So now we're going to be talking about unions. Our
Union.
favorite initiative for workers to have a modicum of say in their lives.
Yeah, like one of the only things that we can do to try to combat the hellscape that is capitalism.
Yeah. Or as Representative Virginia Fox of North Carolina would say, unions are a concentrated effort to chip away at workers' rights.
Which is just inherently wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a big decision that came out recently from the NLRB that we will discuss. There's probably a few other things that we want to get to before that, but there's some actually really good news on the front of unions to discuss on that. And Fox basically said that the ability to allow people to, to actually have unions is chipping away at people's rights and forcing Americans into a union, which is always funny to think about, considering that literally unions are the only way in which workers can have legitimate power against their employers. So like giving them power to negotiate apparently takes away their power.
Oh no, I don't want to be exploited as a worker.
Yeah.
Ah ha ha.
Yeah.
But you know
So
what? There's been some big stuff going on, even today, like really,
so
really
what
big thing.
what happened, Katie?
The UAW is officially going on strike, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of discussion about whether it would actually get to the point where there would need a strike, but it does look like all three of the automakers in the Detroit area that were being targeted have not met the demands of the union, which have been honestly genuinely very reasonable. Um, the union came in with the demands that they wanted to have their pensions restored, which again, reasonable, so reasonable. They wanted to go down to a 32-hour work week, so that would be like a 4-day work week for some folks. Um, and they also wanted to have job security and a 40% pay hike. But honestly, the pay hike, their reasoning for it is because of how much money these car companies have been bringing in. It just hasn't kept up with the amount that the workers are being paid. So if they're having all these profits, why aren't the workers seeing any of it?
Yeah. And
And
the auto
so, yeah,
industry is a huge part of our economy.
yeah,
In fact, according to the Associated Press, it accounts for 3% of the nation's gross domestic product.
which is
From
crazy.
one industry, 3%. And
Yeah,
there's definitely an open question as to whether or not the Biden administration is going to support this particular strike, because on one hand he has been trying to sell himself as the most pro-union president in recent history. At the same time, though, we all saw how he kind of stabbed rail workers in the back
yeah, he
during
fumbled
the
the
negotiation.
bag.
Yeah, during the negotiation process for during the railway strike. Now, part
Yeah,
of that does come down to the fact that a lot of the United States economy is based on is heavily dependent on rail workers, and similar to that, like I said, about 3% of the United States gross domestic product is made up of the U.S. auto industry. So this being shut down is going to have a major impact on the United States economy. And there is a question as to whether or not the Biden administration is going to, prioritize getting them back to work or actually trying to get their demands met. He dropped the
yeah.
ball with the railroad workers. So I don't know. What do you think, Katie?
I know, like according to the Reuters article that I was reading earlier, it looks like there have been quite a few, like the Biden administration is getting pretty heavily involved in this already. Since it's coming down to the deadline, I know that they've been encouraging like 24/7 working on trying to figure out a deal. But honestly, I just don't know if it's enough. Like there have been over 200 strikes this year across different industries. And honestly, the Biden administration hasn't really stood up for anyone in particular.
Yeah.
And honestly, that kind of does rub me the wrong way.
Yeah. One thing that I think is kind of funny is that Trump has actually been trying to court the United Auto Workers kind of in the lead up to this, specifically specifically citing Biden's initiative for I think it was like 2/3 of the auto industry to be electric by 2032. And he basically, like, Trump released a statement today where he said, quote, stand strong against Biden's vicious attack on American labor and American auto workers. If you want more jobs, higher wages, and soaring pensions, vote for President Trump and have your leaders endorse me. If they don't, drop out of the union and start a new one that's going to protect your interests. And what's kind of funny is that the United Auto Workers uh, regional manager in Ohio responded to that and basically saying, quote, the former president, quote, carries no credibility in my book, since he, quote, did nothing to support organized labor except lip service. So
Real.
So basically, the union workers, it's one of those cases of like, oh, you're criticizing Biden here. Well, I guess that means you're on my side. And they're like, no, we hate you even more.
Yeah. No,
Um,
and I just think it goes to show how out of touch Washington and so many of our
yeah,
politicians are with the fact that, like, a normal everyday people are so sick and tired of our current conditions,
yeah,
and they're willing to, and they're excited to join unions and be involved in strikes to make sure that, like, their basic needs are met.
yeah.
Ugh,
I I
no.
I I agree. I mean, you definitely do see a huge difference between politicians that are just doing lip service and politicians that are actually doing something. And Biden's been an interesting case of kind of a mix of both. But
Yeah.
there is one thing that his administration has done recently that might actually be the biggest pro-union step in like the last 5 decades or so.
Spill, Nathan. Tell me about it.
So, the United States National Labor Relations Board, also known as
Mhm,
the NLRB,
mhm.
um, released a new policy recently. The board, in a 3-4 decision, decided to implement a policy that was originally a doctrine created in the 1940s, in which employers have to bargain with unions unless they have a good faith doubt that a majority exists. This is called the Joy-Silk Doctrine. And in fact, the Joy-Silk Doctrine was taken even further in 1970s, where they imposed a standard that said that the NLRB could actually force employers to bargain when they engaged in misconduct so severe that the election would be tainted. And both aspects of that particular policy, which was abandoned under you'll never guess who, Reagan, um,
Of course.
has now been revived. So here's what that means. If there is a majority of people that want a union, a clear majority of people,
Mhm.
the employers will automatically have to bargain with them.
Okay.
If they want to question whether or not there actually is a majority, they can file a petition for there to be an election. But if at any point in the lead up to that election, it is discovered that they do anything to try to taint the election, automatically a union is created and automatically they have to bargain with the workers.
Wow, I would just love it if this could impact all the Starbucks workers that are trying to unionize right now.
Yeah. This originally started because there was a investigation into Chemex. I believe that's how you say it. The cement truck drivers, and there was an administrative judge in 2021 that found that Chemex had committed more than 24 unfair labor practices, including threatening, surveilling, and interrogating workers. This is all according to Reuters, by the way, and hiring security guards to intimidate them shortly before the election. So basically, actions like that under this new ruling would mean that automatically the employers will now have to bargain with the unions.
Huh.
This is massive. This is
Yeah,
like,
that's major.
this might be one of the best things that the Biden administration has ever done. And I say that as somebody that is actively critical of the Biden administration on many levels.
Yeah.
This is massive. And you
Yeah.
know, I will say, I was honestly considering in the primary doing a protest vote for Marianne Williamson, just because I've been so pissed off at Biden. I don't know. This might have clenched my vote for Biden.
I was gonna say, Nathan, I would judge you for voting for Marianne Williamson. I'm not gonna lie.
Over Biden, and it would be a protest vote. And actually, if you've looked at her new platform, her new website, it's actually pretty in depth. It's not bad.
I just can't get over the fact that she was like pretty like low-key anti-vax.
She's addressed that in the she was anti-mandate. She wasn't anti-vax. She was anti-mandate,
Oh,
which she's
fair.
still wrong. I think she's still wrong about that. But she was never anti-vax. She was anti-mandate.
That's fair. You know, I'm really interested to see if this potential new like guidance would change. So like if we haven't mentioned, I'm a graduate student right now, and there have been a lot of different schools and universities that have had their graduate students try to form a union within the last like 2 years or so. Most notably, last year there was a really big incident that happened at Temple University. I don't know if you followed this at all, Nathan, but basically what happened at Temple is their graduate students tried to start a union because they just like being in Philadelphia were not getting paid enough with their
Yeah.
stipends to have like a living wage, which like so reasonable.
Yeah.
No,
I was a graduate student once.
Yes, like grad students do so much work, and they threatened these students who were trying to protest and create this union by threatening to take away their tuition, like their tuition covers. And
Yeah.
so like those who were threatening to unionize, they literally had like statements in their bank account that like forced them to pay for their whole tuition, even if they had scholarships, basically threatening them.
Yeah.
And so I'd be really interested to see if something like that would
might
change
apply
anything.
to, well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I was a graduate student once, and you will not hear any objections from me about that. I was supporting my I was supporting my wife and me on $9.50 a month in Iowa, and it was a rough time. So I definitely sympathize with that, and I'm not sure if this would affect graduate
Yeah.
students, because graduate students are kind of in a different category in terms of official
Yeah.
worker, because like they're a hybrid of being an employee of the university and a student of the university.
Yeah.
So I really don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But honestly, so like the main defining point between you and I, Nathan, is the fact that you're a millennial and the fact that I'm a Gen Z.
Yeah.
A Gen Z born after the year 2000.
Wait, were you actually born after the year 2000?
Yeah, I was born in 2000.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, however the year is my age, yeah.
That's weird.
Oh, I know. Don't trust me. Don't worry. I asked my students on Monday. I was playing a game with them and I told them to come up with jargon from the year 2012, and they said, "Hey, we don't know any jargon from the year 2012. We were like 7 years old." And I was like, "What are you talking about? You were 7 years old in 2012." And that was the first time I have felt aged since I have been in grad school. But talking about Gen Z, apparently we are the most pro-union generation
Yeah.
ever. Like even baby boomers at the height of unions weren't even pro-union as Gen Z currently is.
Yeah. Well, millennials are plenty pro-union. The problem is we've just been fucked over so much we have no hope.
True.
Like
so valid.
Like we have absolutely no hope for anything. Like we came of age, and then, and then Trump was president, and we're just like, well, good things are not possible.
For real.
So,
I mean, like the
so
early end of your generation had the recession, and then
yep,
the later end of it had Trump.
yeah, yeah. And there was a lot of hope in Obama, and he was just kind of really mediocre. And
For real.
then there was hope in there was hope in Bernie, and then that didn't happen. And then we tried to squeeze out hope for Hillary, and then that didn't happen. And then Trump just happened, and we just decided, you know what? Hope is overrated. Fuck the world.
No, for real. Oh, but also on the tone of unions, first off, selfishly, I want the WGA strike to end personally,
Yeah,
because honestly, I really miss listening to Seth Meyers in the morning.
I do. I do miss
Super
that too.
embarrassingly.
I do miss that too. I will say I hope that it ends soon because the demands are met.
I really want the demands to be met. And what's been really interesting to me this week has been the Drew Barrymore controversy.
Yeah, I saw something small about that. Like, what's that
Yeah.
about? What's that
Yeah.
about?
So apparently, Drew Barrymore is a scab,
Hmm.
and she's continuing on, like she started refilming her talk show, which technically like falls under the WGA kind of guidelines. And so she's pretty much like crossing the picket line for the most part, even though she is a member of
Hmm.
SAG-AFTRA. And
Interesting.
I'm sure that she might be a member of the WGA. I don't know, but apparently she was like throwing people out of her recordings, like in her audience that had like buttons supporting the union on, and
Well, she
she's just
had to
like,
expect that people were going to be calling you out for that. I mean,
yeah, yeah, I know, and she's just like been very unapologetic. She's like, we're going back, and it's just like so crazy because Drew has like such a positive, reputation for the most part.
yeah,
And for her to kind of do this, it just seems very uncharacteristic, honestly.
yeah,
And like considering the fact that like people have been so good about like respecting both of these strikes that are going on in the media industry, it's just kind of shocking to me.
yeah.